Trust is a fragile thing, like a glass heirloom teetering on a shelf. I learned that the hard way when I let my brother move into my house. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how family ties unraveled in a way I never saw coming. 3 years ago, I bought a modest two-story house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a backyard that could have been a jungle. It was my pride, my sanctuary after years of grinding away at a construction job. I'd spent countless weekends sanding floors, painting walls, and dreaming of the life I'd build there. But when my younger brother, Caleb, called me in tears, saying he and his family were drowning in debt, I didn't hesitate. Family comes first. Right, I offered him the house at half the market rent, a steal that had let him, his wife Sarah, and their two kids, Mia and Lucas, breathe easy. I moved into a cramped apartment downtown, figuring I'd manage. Caleb promised to take care of the place, to treat it like his own. I believed him. That was my first mistake. Caleb had always been the charming one. Golden hair, quick wit, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of anything. Growing up, he'd borrow my bike, my clothes, even my savings. Always with a grin and a "I'll pay you back." Ethan, swear. He rarely did, but he was my brother. And when he hugged me, swearing he'd turn things around for his family, I felt that old pull of loyalty. Sarah, his wife, was quieter, a worrier, always thanking me profusely for the house. The kids were a whirlwind: Mia, 8, with her gap-toothed smile, and Lucas, 5, who'd cling to my leg whenever I visited. I loved them. I wanted to help. For the first year, things seemed fine. Caleb paid rent on time, though he'd grumble about it. I'd stop by occasionally, noticing little things: a scuff on the wall, a broken cabinet handle, but nothing major. Sarah would apologize, saying the kids were rough, and I'd wave it off. It's just a house, I'd say, though it stung to see my hard work treated so casually. Then, about 6 months ago, the rent check started coming late. First a week, then 2. Caleb always had excuses: a car repair, Mia's dance lessons, Lucas's hospital visit for a bad flu. I let it slide, wiring them extra cash when Sarah hinted they were struggling. I didn't want the kids to suffer. But something felt off. Caleb stopped inviting me over, always saying they were busy. When I did visit, the house looked different. The backyard was a mess, with trash bags piled up and an old couch rotting in the corner. Inside, the walls I'd painted were scratched, and there was a strange smell, like stale beer and something chemical. Sarah avoided my eyes, and the kids seemed quieter, like they were hiding something. Caleb, though, was all smiles, slapping my back and promising to get back on track. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. One night, I got a call from my neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, a nosy but kind widow who lived across the street. "Ethan," she whispered, "something's not right at your house. There's people coming and going at all hours, cars I don't recognize. I saw Caleb with some rough-looking types last week." My stomach dropped. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. What was he doing? I decided to dig deeper. I started watching the house myself, parking a block away in my beat-up truck. Sure enough, late at night, cars would pull up, sleek ones, not the kind you'd expect in our quiet neighborhood. Men in hoodies would slip into the garage, stay for 10 minutes, then leave. Caleb was always there, glancing around nervously before closing the door. One night, I followed one of the cars to a gas station and caught a glimpse of the driver handing over a thick envelope to another guy. Cash. Lots of it. My heart pounded. Was Caleb dealing drugs in my house? I confronted Sarah first, figuring she'd crack easier. I showed up unannounced one afternoon, catching her as she was folding laundry. "Sarah, what's Caleb doing in the garage?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Her hands froze and her face went pale. "Nothing. Ethan, just storage stuff," she stammered, but her eyes darted to the floor, and I knew she was lying. I pressed harder. mentioning the cars, the late-night visitors. She started crying, begging me not to tell anyone. "He's just trying to make extra money," she whispered. "For the kids." "For the kids," I snapped. "What's he doing? Sarah, tell me, or I'm calling the cops." She broke down, sobbing, and spilled everything. Caleb was running an illegal sports betting ring out of the garage, taking bets on everything from football to underground fights. He'd gotten in deep with some shady guys who fronted him cash to start, and now he owed them. The house. My house was collateral. If he didn't pay up, they'd come for it. Worse, he'd been forging my signature on documents, claiming he had my permission to use the property for business. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My own brother betraying me like this. I'd given him everything, my home, my trust, and he'd turned it into a den for his schemes. I stormed out, ignoring Sarah's pleas, and drove straight to a lawyer. I wanted answers, and I wanted justice. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel, laid out my options. The forged documents were a felony, and I could press charges. Eviction was also on the table, but it'd be messy since Caleb's family was involved. "You've got a strong case," Rachel said, "but it'll tear your family apart. Are you ready for that?" I didn't answer. I wasn't sure. All I could think about was Mia and Lucas, their innocent faces, and how they'd suffer if their dad went to jail. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the eviction notice I drafted. I thought about our childhood Caleb and me building forts, sharing secrets, promising to always have each other's backs. He'd been reckless even then, but I'd always cleaned up his messes. Now, though, the mess was too big. I pictured the house, my labor of love, tainted by his greed. I pictured Sarah, trapped between loyalty to Caleb and fear for her kids. And I pictured those men in the garage, profiting off my home while I scraped by in a shoebox apartment. I made my decision. The next morning, I drove to the house and slipped the eviction notice under the door. It gave them a week to vacate. I didn't call the cops, not yet. I wanted to give Caleb a chance to come clean, to make things right, but I wasn't holding my breath. That week was torture. Caleb called me nonstop, leaving voicemails that ranged from begging to cursing me out. "You're kicking us out, your own family," he shouted in one. "You're heartless," Ethan and Sarah texted, pleading for more time, saying they had nowhere to go. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every word felt like a knife, but I kept picturing those forged documents, the lies, the betrayal. I had to protect myself, my future. On the final day, I showed up with Rachel and a sheriff's deputy to serve the eviction. Caleb was waiting on the porch, his face red with rage. Sarah stood behind him, holding Mia and Lucas, who were crying. "You're really doing this," Caleb spat. "After everything I've done for you," I laughed, a bitter sound. "Everything you've done, like forging my name, risking my house." His eyes widened, and for the first time, he looked scared. He knew I knew. Sarah stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Ethan, please, the kids, they don't deserve this." My heart broke, but I held firm. "I gave you a chance. Sarah, Caleb chose this." The deputy handed them the papers, and Caleb tore them up, screaming that I'd regret it. But the law was on my side. They had to leave. As they packed, I walked through the house one last time. The walls were scarred, the floors stained. The backyard was a dump, but it was still mine, and I'd rebuild it. Mia ran up to me, tears streaming down her face. "Uncle Ethan, why do we have to go?" she asked. I knelt down, fighting back my own tears. "Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. Sweetheart, I'm sorry." I hugged her, then Lucas, and walked away before I lost my nerve. Caleb and his family moved to a cheap motel, and I heard through Mrs. Delaney that he was trying to pay off his debts. I didn't press charges, though Rachel said I still could. Part of me wanted to make him pay for his betrayal. But another part, the part that remembered our childhood, our promises, couldn't do it. Not yet. The house is empty now, and I'm back to fixing it up. Every nail I hammer feels like a step toward healing. But the scars Caleb left aren't just on the walls. They're in me. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. I wonder if I was too harsh, if I could have found another way. But then I remember the envelope, the lies, the way he gambled with my home. And I know I did what I had to. What would you do if your family betrayed you like this? Is blood thicker than justice? Or does trust outweigh loyalty? Share your thoughts. Where do you stand on the line between forgiveness and accountability?